joining me here today. It's a pleasure. I didn't know that this is the first international conference that's online, but it makes a lot of sense with the current situation. So it's a pleasure to be here at the very first online international conference. And when I was invited to give a talk at this conference today with all of you, I was told about the topic, and that's about upgrading our teaching skills in the classroom. And what I'd like to talk about with you today is perhaps something that can get left behind sometimes when we talk about teaching skills, and that's homework. Now, when we think of homework, I think perhaps we can all agree that in our classrooms, it can actually be the cause of a lot of frustration, anxiety, and stress for our students. But when we take into account what we know about learning in the 21st century, how far we've come with methodologies, different techniques in our classrooms, that homework in some ways sometimes hasn't really caught up with this kind of change. Homework is still seen as some kind of a repetitive chore to be done by the students. And this is the idea behind my talk today. This is going to be some ideas to help to engage, excite, and help our learners to become more involved in homework, especially in the 21st century. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Okay. Can I just get a quick confirmation? Can everybody see the slides? If you like, you can write in the chat, or
yes.
Patricia.
Yes,
Lourdes,
Daniel.
yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this was part of my introduction then. So we're talking about homework in the 21st century. And today we're going to be looking at, first of all, some of the main problems and challenges that we face as teachers and also our students face when it comes to homework. And then we're going to look at some practical examples on how to engage our students more in homework tasks. As I mentioned before, homework has almost become something of like a dirty word in the classroom. It causes a lot of students to feel uncomfortable. It's something that they don't really enjoy doing. Now, I understand as well, we're not magicians. We can't just wave a magic wand and suddenly make our students fall in love with homework. But I do think that with a principled approach and careful strategies, we can help our students bit by bit to become more engaged in homework tasks. This is what I'd like to show you and demonstrate to you today. So, start off as teachers, let's remind ourselves a little bit of the types of homework that we usually give in our classrooms. Early levels, primary teachers, if there are primary teachers with us here today, that would normally include things like spelling, some simple vocabulary, some drawing, handwriting. Maybe our students are learning the alphabet for the first time. They're learning to read and write. So we're giving them extra homework to facilitate this. Maybe they're looking at some easy grammar topics. Of course, at primary levels, we're not specifically teaching grammar rules, but we're helping to introduce a lot of the structures too. So this is the kind of typical primary homework tasks that we have. Looking into the more advanced levels, if you're teaching secondary or adults, for example, we still give vocabulary as homework. Perhaps the homework looks more at more extensive vocabulary definitions, synonyms, for example. There may be a lot more writing tasks involved to help them develop their productive skills. You may be a teacher here today that specifically teaches or helps your learners to prepare for exams. So maybe a lot of the homework that you give to your students is centered around use of English or exam style tasks. So as teachers, we're all very, very aware of the different types of homework that we give to our students. But the burning question, of course, do students actually enjoy homework? Now, I suppose many of you have got this impression from your students before. Maybe you've asked them before directly if they like doing their homework. Maybe when you were students at school, you had your own opinions about whether you liked your homework or not. I don't think there's really a correct answer to this question. I think really the best answer we can give to if students like homework or not is that it really depends. It depends on two things, really. It depends on the eagerness of the student, how willing they are to do the homework, and also the type of homework that we're giving to our students. For example, if homework is engaging and manageable, this is going to lead to higher motivation in our students. We can see here in the picture, we have a primary student quite happily doing a project or some kind of craft work activity. They seem quite motivated, they're quite happy to do it. Now, on the other hand, if homework is uninviting and tedious, as we can see here, lots of books to read, lots of lists to memorize, perhaps just studying grammar rules all weekend, it's going to lead to lower motivation. And I'm sure a lot of us have been in this situation before as students ourselves, and we've seen our students in this kind of position. And I think as students get older, generally, homework kind of transitions from being something that is quite, engaging and manageable to something that is, more boring and repetitive with the amount of work that they have to do. Now, as teachers, have you ever asked your students why they don't like homework? Perhaps many of you here today have asked them already. I know when I was teaching a lot in Spain, I always used to ask my students about their homework. They always had some kind of homework from their school, and then they'd come to the private school to do their extra English lessons, and they'd have so much homework. And I would ask them a lot. And I think if you have asked your students why they don't like homework, you'll probably have received the most common answer, which is that simply it's not entertaining. It's not something that they find fun. It's something boring and repetitive for them. Now, if we think about our students and think about your own students, perhaps we can find a way to solve this problem. I think this is probably the main problem we have with homework. How can we actually find a way to engage students straight away in homework? Now, perhaps we can solve this by thinking about our own students. Think about your students. When they leave your classroom, what's the first thing that they normally do? Maybe pick up their mobile phone, grab a tablet, go home, watch TV, turn on the computer, anything I think involving technology or a screen. Our students are automatically connected to something. And this makes quite perfect sense, I think. The students that we're teaching today are digital natives. They've grown up with the internet. They've grown up with all of these different types of gadgets. They're very, very used to finding information through the internet, which makes our lives more difficult as teachers, obviously, because we're not used to this kind of thing. But this could be a way that we could engage our students in homework through technology. This is what a study had to say in 2016 that asked students precisely this: how would technology benefit them, or how do they feel about using technology inside their lessons? 93% of these students said that it made learning more fun for them, it made it more interesting, and perhaps the most important thing, they actually recognized or acknowledged that by using technology as part of their learning or as part of their homework, it was teaching them essential job skills. Now, this is perhaps something that we could use in our homework to engage students from the very beginning. So maybe again, think about your own students. Would they prefer to revise for a test in this way, the traditional way, or through an interactive quiz, for example? Now, in both examples, the objective is completely the same. You have to revise, you have to practice, perhaps you have to answer some questions, but the way we present it in the way of an online quiz, for example, it just changes things slightly, and it's more relevant to what students are used to, and it's a way we can engage their interests from the very beginning. Now, this is a very simple example, but I wanted to show you this just from using just a simple amount of technology in the homework that we give. This could be one way to help our students begin to engage more with different tasks. This can be one way we can engage students through technology. We're going to see some more examples a bit later on in the presentation. Now, another challenge that we have as teachers is what is the right amount of homework to give our students? Again, it's not very clear cut. There's no real correct answer to this question, I think. Now, I'm not really sure what it's like in Peru. Maybe you can help me out today in the chat. From what you've seen as teachers, what would you say is the average amount of hours that your students, spend doing their homework? Maybe 4 hours a week of homework in Peru for the average student, maybe 5 or 6. So what I can share with you then is some statistics from other parts of the world. So for example, in Italy, the average student receives about 8.7 hours of homework per week, compared to students in Finland and South Korea that they have about 2.8, nearly 3 hours of homework per week. It's quite a big difference between these countries in the amount of time that the students spend doing their homework. And more interestingly, South Korea and Finland actually are considered to have one of the best, if not the best, education systems in the world. So it makes it very difficult for us as teachers to kind of gauge how much homework is the right amount of homework for our students. Now, if we give too little homework, of course, our students are not going to practice. And if we give too much homework, then our students may reject the homework entirely, and we're going to receive a lot of these lovely things, excuses. And I think as teachers, we can all agree, we've all received our fair share of excuses when it comes to homework from different students. And I wanted to share some of these with you today. So these are some of my favorite excuses that I have heard or seen inside an ELT classroom. The first one, I couldn't do my homework because my room is haunted. I lost my homework fighting another kid who said that you weren't the best teacher in the school. Maybe this excuse, I could make some exceptions for this one, but we don't want our students to be giving us this. We want our students to be giving us their homework. I had a football game, so I didn't have enough time to do my homework. This can be quite a common problem. When I was in Spain, for example, a lot of students, they were some of the busiest people that I had ever met in my life. They were always working, always studying, always going to their extracurricular sports lessons after school, coming to the private language school to do their work. They never had any time to actually do their homework. My fish died, so I was too upset to do my homework, a classic. I didn't do it because I didn't want the other kids in the class to look bad. I had too much maths homework, so I couldn't do your homework. I had a cold last week. I wasn't feeling great, so I didn't do my homework. There are so many different types of excuses that our students can offer. They can make us laugh, they can make us frustrated. But why am I showing you these excuses? What's the point in me showing you them today? If we have a look at these excuses, we can actually agree, I think, that some of them are quite creative, right? And some of them are quite imaginative. Maybe inside our classrooms, we have a lot of students that are very imaginative, or they like being creative, but they just don't know how to show it, or they haven't been given the proper outlet to show their creativity. So this could be another way that we can approach homework, allowing creative outlets for our students through creative tasks. Here's just a simple one that I wanted to share with you today. Imagine that you've just been teaching about the family tree, for example, different members of the family. Normally we find this in a course book at the very beginning of our course books, and maybe you want to prepare some kind of a project to practice the vocabulary and just to go over the families that you've been studying. Perhaps you can ask your students to prepare a family motto or a unique kind of symbol that best describes their family, as we see below. Something very personalized, something quite creative. Students can put some thought into it, and then something that they can present to the rest of the class. Something nice to finish off a unit, for example, to recap what's been done. So this is just an example of some kind of a creative activity, just to put their creative minds to work in positive ways, rather than giving us these excuses, allowing them to work creatively using language in different ways. Here's an example that we can use even at primary levels. Imagine asking your primary students to prepare a poster about their ideal Christmas present or their favorite toy, for example. They can draw their toy, they can talk about the colors, they can talk about the different materials, and they can present it back to the class. So a simple kind of task that involves some creativity, we're using language, and it's something that students can actually work with in a meaningful way. And again, this can be something that we can use to engage students in homework tasks. Now, I wanted to include something today in my talk about digital assignment of homework. Now, I'm in Peru right now for the foreseeable future, and for a long time already, you have been teaching online for most of your classes. So I thought that this in some way could be connected to our homework, because I suspect that many of you over the last few months have been assigning your homework almost 100% through digital means via WhatsApp, via emails, for example, or via Zoom meetings that you're having. And I think this is something that we should consider right now, because I think this could be something that could stick with us after this pandemic, and it's something that could actually help students to stay engaged with their homework. Now, from observing online teaching firsthand, I've actually noticed during the first months of the pandemic that there are actually quite a lot of benefits of assigning homework digitally. Perhaps you found the same as well when you've been teaching your classes. And I thought I'd share some with you today. And also, I'd like to point out how some of these advantages can actually really help students too. So first of all, one of the first things that I noticed when seeing teachers teaching online and assigning homework online was that there was no delay in relaying information to their students. They didn't have to wait for their young learners to copy down the homework off the board, for example, as we normally would do in our classrooms. There was no wasting of time waiting for students to copy down the homework, for example. From my personal experience as a teacher, every time you turn your back to the class to write something on the board, something will happen. There'll be some kind of distraction. When you assign homework digitally, there's no distraction. You keep the class focused and you don't waste time, and you can move on to more important things. Something else, all students who are absent from the class, everyone is going to get notified of the homework. This is something that used to be very common in face-to-face classes. You have students away for whatever reason, and you have students coming back to the class and not knowing what the homework was. Assigning homework digitally is a great way to avoid this and inform students. There's also no misunderstanding of homework. Writing the homework clearly in an email is something that the students will receive and be able to work with. I know in my experience, I saw a lot of students when I used to teach that would copy down the homework so quickly in their notebook. They were so keen to leave the class that they wouldn't be able to read their writing in their notebook, and they'd come to class the next day and they would have done the wrong page, for example. We can totally avoid this by assigning homework digitally. And finally, we keep a clear record of all the assignments. We have dates, we have times, we have clear emails. We can keep a nice record of the different homework tasks that we've assigned to our students. And I think this is important to allow students to submit homework digitally. It's an important skill to communicate via email. It gives them a bit of responsibility at the same time, because you're asking your students to, first of all, check the emails, respond, and send their homework in some kind of attachment or something like that. Even with some of our younger levels, this could be an important skill to develop with them. By giving them a bit of responsibility, you're also motivating them in a way to participate and engage and perhaps be a bit more productive with their homework. So this is something that I think that perhaps we shouldn't disregard when we go back to our face-to-face teaching. Perhaps digital assignment of homework could actually stay with us long after the pandemic ends, and it's something that we can use to our advantage. Okay, so we've looked at a lot of the different challenges that homework presents to us and our students. Now let's try and move more into the practical side of things and look at some different methodologies that we can use in our classrooms to engage the students. I think a good starting place for this is to simply ask, why do we actually give homework? What is the purpose of our homework tasks? Now, of course, we all know as teachers, we want our students to practice. We want to consolidate all of the topics that we've been teaching in our classes. And I think we can all agree, actually, that the purpose of homework has actually changed radically in the last 10 or 20 years. The examples that I'm showing you here are from a very, very, very traditional classroom. Maybe some of you can remember this kind of classroom. Even for me, who wasn't at school that long ago, the picture at the very bottom with a student reading at the front of the class and reciting, this was something very normal in my classroom too. So when we think about the traditional classroom, I think it involved a lot of studying of grammatical rules, memorizing these grammar tables, and simply translating abstract sentences into the mother tongue without any kind of context, without any kind of connection between anything else, just simply studying and translating. Perhaps there wasn't a lot of oral work either, a lot of speaking or communication. I know that when I was in school and I was learning French, for example, a lot of the speaking that took place in my French lesson was simply, this is a chair, this is a pencil case, this is a window, for example. That was the entirety of our speaking practice. Can I speak French today? I think you probably know the answer to that question. Not very well at all. And it's because of this kind of disregard, I think, for the oral work that we were doing in the class. Students were also required to memorize things. I've mentioned this already. So a lot of memorization took place in the traditional classroom. Translating not just sentences, but also written texts into the target language. Perhaps some of you had these kinds of tasks as your homework when you were at school. And finally, just general purpose language comprehension. No kind of focus on any kind of communication, not any kind of focus on any particular skills. So this is what kind of encompassed the traditional classroom. And as you can see, in this kind of classroom, there's not a lot of room for creativity. There's not a lot of room for communication or collaboration, a lot of the skills that are required in the 21st century. Now, if we have a look at the reasons for giving homework today, I think we can see a big contrast in this. First of all, a lot of methodologies, a lot of research into learning has helped us to understand how to learn in the best possible ways. For example, we have Bloom's taxonomy, different ways of applying knowledge, not just remembering and understanding things from the previous lesson, but being able to apply knowledge, being able to analyze, create, evaluate using what we know already. At the same time, there's a lot of emphasis not just on what we're learning, so not just about learning grammar rules, for example, but how we learn these grammar rules, how we learn the vocabulary. We as teachers now, we are able to see, which of our students learn the best. Do they learn best by doing things? Are they kinesthetic learners? Are they visual learners? Do they learn best through auditory means? Perhaps they want to listen to things or watch a video to help them learn. We as teachers, thanks to a lot of the methodologies and research, we are able to assign homework and help our students using this knowledge. Also, a lot more focus on communication. We have a lot more practical work on speaking, for example, or just having a conversation with someone. That can be part of our homework that we can set today. And finally, this focus on the 21st century skills that I mentioned before. Of course, the 4 C's: communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication, I think it was. Oh, no, sorry, creativity. Those are the 4. A lot of focus on these. Of course, they're very important skills, and we want our students to be able to develop them at home. So these are some of the main reasons why homework has changed so much today. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, I think quite typically with the homework that we assign, we can often forget a lot of this, and we kind of stick to our gap-filling activities, simply listing things or memorizing vocabulary or grammar. It's important skill to have, but it's something that perhaps is taking up too much time in the homework that we're giving to students. We need to allow our students to develop and practice these different skills required, especially in the 21st century. So let's have a look at some different types of examples then. We talked a lot about applying language in different ways, using creative skills, collaborative skills, critical thinking. Just using simple tasks maybe can be a way to help our students to do this. Imagine that you work in a company that creates apps, for example, and ask your students to develop their own application. They need to say what it's called, what it does, and explain why people would want to use it and how it would work. This can be a great kind of a group project for students. They can use language in creative ways. They're thinking critically about a topic that is relevant to them. Our students, as we know, they're connected to technology all the time. They use apps probably a lot more than we do, so they can perhaps offer some of their own experience and their own knowledge to this too. So perhaps using different forms of creative and collaborative tasks can help students to engage in meaningful and useful homework tasks that they're going to be excited to participate in. Something similar here, perhaps thinking of a future invention, even perhaps some of you have done this before in your classes. Ask students to come up with something, some kind of invention that they think might change the world in the next 10 to 20 years, for example. Now, it's quite often that we forget that with primary levels, we can still kind of implement these methodologies. Even at primary levels, we can have some group work, we can have some collaboration there as well. We can even have some very simple but effective research tasks too. It could be as simple as just finding or drawing pictures of dinosaurs, for example. What do these dinosaurs eat? What are these dinosaurs called? Where do they live? And present some kind of a project back to the class. Obviously, with primary learners, I think it's important to remember that good organization and proper scaffolding and proper introduction of these tasks is going to be more effective for us. So it's going to lead to greater collaboration between the students. They just need a bit more extra support in these situations. Now, when I was researching for this talk, I read a lot of different academic articles about homework. And one of them that stood out the most was from a gentleman, you can see his name at the bottom of the screen here. His name is Alfie Kohn. And he's done a lot of articles. He's written a lot of academic articles all about homework. One of them is called Rethinking Homework, and the link is at the bottom there if you're interested in reading it. And what he does is he kind of looks at homework from a completely different perspective and thinks about what really makes a homework task effective for the student to develop their learning, and also meaningful and engaging for them. And he picks out a lot of different components that help this. I've highlighted 3 today that I think could be useful to help our own students. The first one of that is this thing with choice. He mentions having choice when you assign a homework task to students, giving them some kind of autonomy, some kind of choice in that task to decide how they approach it and to decide how they're going to progress their own learning, which I think is very important. When we say choice, of course, we're not just saying to allow the students to do whatever they like in the homework tasks. There needs to be some kind of structure, but allowing a little bit of flexibility in homework tasks so students can approach them in different ways. This is something that he really highlights, and I think this is something important that I could share with you today. The second thing that he mentions is to design what you assign. Simply assigning something from a textbook might not always be the best option for students. As teachers, we know our students quite well. We know perhaps how to engage our students in different ways. So assigning creative tasks or adding some kind of a creative element to an exercise can also help our students to engage a little bit more, or encourage them to approach the homework in different ways. So rather than just giving them a page of grammar exercises, for example, maybe adding some kind of a creative task to that, or something that's going to engage them in different ways. And also, finally, he mentions something that I think is probably the standout thing here, is that one size really does not fit all when it comes to homework. If you think about your own classes, if you think about your own students, you probably know when you give your homework, when you give homework to your students, you know the students in the class that maybe can complete the homework in 5 minutes. You know the students in your class that maybe it will take them 10 or 20 minutes to do this piece of homework. And what Alfie Kohn says is that if you know that you have a student that can complete the homework in 2 minutes and be done with it, is it really going to be beneficial for them? Is it really going to be worth their time and help them? So he suggests that perhaps we tailor different assignments to different learners based on their needs, their capabilities, and their interests. If we know our student is going to complete the homework in 2 minutes, perhaps we can add a layer of difficulty to the task for them, or we can add something that they perhaps are interested in to gauge their interest more. Perhaps you have students that perhaps they need to focus more on different skills. So we change the homework slightly to help them improve these certain skills. Maybe again, they're working on the past simple, for example, and you add some extra things in there to focus on these skills. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I think it's quite interesting points of view. If you want to see more about this, you can see the link at the bottom. And what I'd like to do now is see how we can apply this theory to a homework task. So what I'd like to do with you, I'm going to show you a very short video. It's maybe only 20 seconds long. And at home, or wherever you are, in your office or at home, if you'd like to watch along with the video and think to yourself, if I was teaching a class, what kind of homework could I assign from this video?
We used electricity for everything, even to grow food and pump water. But after the blackout, nothing worked. Not even car engines or jet turbines, hell, even batteries, all of it gone forever. Governments fell.
So a very, very short video. Perhaps you've already had some ideas already about what kind of homework you could assign from this video. We can approach it in many different ways. When I've asked teachers before, perhaps they've offered a lot of different suggestions, of course. Perhaps we can offer some kind of a writing activity where students kind of write a short text to explain what happened in this world that now we have an apocalypse, for example, what happened, or they can write about what happens next in the story. Some teachers also offered something about talking about the environment. This video focuses a lot on the use of electricity, and if electricity was to disappear, what would happen? So some teachers have even suggested using a debate on the environment, for example, and using the video as a stimulus for this. Now, the example that I'm going to show you today is asking students to prepare some kind of a project or a presentation. What would your life be like without electricity? How would you live in this world? How would you deal with your home life? How would transport be affected? How would communication and entertainment be affected if there was no electricity tomorrow? Now, I think we can apply here a lot of what Alfie Kohn said before in the previous slide, because in this exercise, we have the video as a stimulus. So we've already sort of tried to engage the students' attention. Then we have this idea of choice. Now, in this exercise, I think the students do have a lot of choice and flexibility. They get to decide how would they live in this world. They get to choose what they would do survive without electricity and explain how it would affect their life. So they have some kind of choice here and some kind of flexibility in this task. Now, can we design what we assign? I think we can also do that in this task too. We can offer this as a written task. It could be a presentation or a public speaking task. It could be some kind of a class discussion too. So we are able to add different elements to this task. And if we want to make it more appealing to different students' interests or capabilities or needs, I think we can do this here as well. So this is how I think that we could very easily apply what Alfie Kohn said before to different types of activities, allowing freedom, allowing the opportunity to work on different skills, appeal to different students' interests and needs. This could be a speaking task to practice speaking ability, or it could be a written task, for example, using a variety of different vocabulary and grammar structures that we've studied throughout the module so far. So this is something that perhaps could be useful when thinking about engaging the students. Now, what I'd like to also add to this is that I think this is very important to take away from today's session. When we think about homework, homework is essentially a form of production. It's something that the students will be completing to, in a way, demonstrate their understanding of something that they've done in the class, or demonstrate a skill in something that we've been practicing in the class. Now, I think with homework, it's very easy to assign written homework or some kind of gap-filling activity all the time. And I think when it comes to engaging students in homework, the idea, or the most beneficial thing for us, is to look for multiple pathways for production. What I mean by multiple pathways is that a written text could easily be translated as a poster, for example, writing a song or a poem, or creating some kind of a brochure or leaflet is a form of writing, for example. If you want to focus on speaking, it doesn't just have to be a presentation at the front of the class. It could be a debate. It could be something like making a video or a podcast for the rest of the class to watch later. It could involve some group research, for example, or even some kind of drama or role play, if you want to add that as well. And this is something that I think is very important. I think the more pathways that we can establish through homework, the more that we can engage our students. We're going to have a lot of students that are very, heavily interested in art and drawing pictures. You have students perhaps that are very interested in drama and role play. You have students that perhaps love being on TikTok and YouTube all the time. So we perhaps can give them the opportunity to make a podcast as part of their homework. I think that would be very exciting and very engaging for them to do this as part of their homework task. And here are some of my favorite activities that I'd like to share with you related to this. For example, with public speaking, preparing a presentation, a short talk about how to be a responsible traveler, and presenting it to the rest of the class. Or perhaps having a debate in your class. Do you think that giving computers artificial intelligence is a good idea? Why or why not? Something, again, quite related to our students' realities. They're very connected with apps and technology today. Perhaps they have something to say about this. This is my personal favorite. Do some research and find another character, or find a character who has been played by lots of different actors, and present them to the class. And then perhaps this can lead to a class discussion. It could lead to a presentation or some kind of a debate, and the class decide which actor played this character the best. So, for example, Batman. For me, Christian Bale will always be the best Batman, but you may have people that disagree. So this could be something that's quite inviting for the students to take part in. Also through group research projects and, sorry, not group research, making quizzes. When you have students that are asked to simply do a research project, for example, why not turn this into making a quiz? Asking students to research a topic, but then also prepare some questions for the rest of the class to take part in. So here we have a nice example. Collect information about different inventions, different inventors, and prepare a quiz for your classmates. So students are actually preparing their own kind of tests for their colleagues. They're using their knowledge, they're going out and finding information, and they're applying their knowledge by creating these quizzes for their classmates too. So some nice ideas, I think, to help, just to generate some ideas for how to create these multiple pathways for homework tasks. Now, I've shown you a lot of different tasks today, a lot of creative, collaborative, lots of different styles. But as teachers, and I fully understand this, our ultimate goal is not how excited the student is about the homework, but how effectively they are practicing the language, how effectively they are developing their skills. And this is why I wanted to to go through this with you as well, because I think this is very important. In any kind of activity that we give to our students, we should always ask ourselves, what are our students actually going to be learning from this? So take, for example, a nice creative activity. Create your own film character, and then think about a type of film that this character is in. Think of a name. What do they look like? What are they like as a person? What is their character like? And present them to the class. It's a nice creative activity. Students can take a lot of time into doing this. They might be quite excited to do it. But at the same time, we can also work on a variety of different skills and language, grammar and vocabulary just for this one task. In this one task, you may want to focus on relative clauses, for example. You may want to practice the comparative or superlative. You may want to focus on the verb to be, on different adjectives, for example. So this is just an idea to show you that within any kind of creative task, there is a lot of flexibility to practice language too. Just because an activity is exciting or interesting and engaging, it should also have this other element too, being able to help the learners to practice. Perhaps you can come up with some of your own ideas at home as to how this activity could help your students. Perhaps you have been studying the verb to be and different adjectives this term in school, and maybe your students have a test coming up. To help them revise for the test, maybe they could create their own character. They can practice the verb to be. They're writing about my character is, they are, for example. They can focus on lots of different adjectives, vocabulary that they've been studying so far. So this could be a very nice revision topic for students if they want to, if this is something that you want to use to engage them and help them to study grammar rather than just perhaps just studying the grammar tables. It can be a nice alternative for them. So a lot of different ideas. One final thing that I want to show with you today, the last part of the presentation, I'd like to talk to you about something called the flipped classroom. Perhaps many of you are familiar with the term flipped classroom. It's something that is fairly new, especially in ELT, but I think it's something that's very, very useful and can be used very effectively in our online learning. And it's something that I wanted to share with you today. So inside our flipped classroom, for those of you who are not familiar with the term flipped classroom, it involves our students studying content at home and then applying their knowledge inside the classroom. It's very different from the conventional classroom, and I'm going to explain why. So in our conventional classroom, if you imagine a lecture, for example, students come to the lecture, they listen to the teacher, and the teacher explains to them about the Aztec Empire, for example. So in the class, they make some notes, they understand what the teacher's saying, they try and remember a lot of the facts, and then they go home and they have to write an essay about the Aztec Empire and compare it to the Incan Empire, for example. So if we look at Bloom's taxonomy as our kind of reference point, the remembering and understanding part happens inside the classroom. And at home, the higher order thinking skills, this is where they happen. So in writing the essay, comparing the different, the Aztec and the Incan Empire in some kind of an essay, this is where they apply the knowledge. This is what happens in a conventional classroom. In an ELT classroom, this could be the same. The teacher in the class goes through some vocabulary. Students remember and understand the vocabulary, and maybe in the class we have some time to practice, so they apply some of it. And then at home, they have to do something more with the vocabulary. Now, in a flipped classroom, this is completely flipped upside down. So what we have is, we have the understanding and remembering part taking place as the homework. So our students do a bit of work at home. This can be through a podcast, through watching a video, or simply through reading a text or doing a quick Google search. And then when they come to class, then they actually get to apply the homework that they've studied or prepared at home already. This is how it works in the flipped classroom. So we have the higher order thinking skills taking place inside the classroom with the teacher present. And I think this is something that can really help our students engage with homework. Especially, I think this is ideal for teaching online too. So to kind of put this into practice, let's have a look at a typical lesson. This is a typical spread from any kind of course book that you can find, any kind of English course book. Inside our course book, we have reading, we have a writing, a speaking activity, we have some vocabulary, maybe a little bit of focus on grammar too. Inside our conventional classroom, we can probably agree we would assign the speaking or writing as our homework. Maybe we'd do a bit of the reading in the class, we'd go through some vocabulary too, and then we'd assign the speaking and writing as homework. Now let's have a look at how this could work inside a flipped classroom. So we're going to use this lesson and we're going to flip it. We're going to have our students doing things at home and then coming to class and doing different exercises with them. So inside a conventional classroom, for example, a quick vocabulary exercise, listen and repeat. Which of the planets in our solar system are outer or inner? What is the difference between a planet and a star, for example? Now, in a conventional classroom, the teacher would probably explain this to the students. Maybe they have the teacher's book and the teacher's book has a nice description, something to tell the students. Now, in a flipped classroom, why not assign this part as the homework for your students? What is the difference between a planet and a star? Which planets are outer and inner? I personally have no idea, but I'd like to find out. And maybe that can be our students' task to go home, research this, and then come to class and tell us what is the difference between a planet and a star? How are our planets in our solar system? Which ones are outer and inner? So a nice little research task. And then when they come back to class, we are actually present with them when they apply their knowledge, and they can actually perhaps teach us something new, which is something that I think should be encouraged in our classes. When it comes to reading, we can approach this very similarly as well. Perhaps in a conventional classroom, we would go through the reading with our students, answer a few questions. How about assigning the reading as homework? The reading can be like our stimulus. The students can go home, read the text, use a dictionary, and we can prepare some questions for them. What did you find interesting about the text? What did you find surprising? Did you find the text boring at all? Is it something that you are generally interested in? Or is there anything that you would like to learn about this text? And then we can discuss these questions inside the classroom when you come back. So again, applying the knowledge, opening up more possibilities for creativity, for analyzing, for these higher order thinking skills by assigning just our homework in a slightly different way. Finally, with our speaking and writing, perhaps instead of assigning the whole writing as a piece of homework, students can go home. Their objective here is to present some kind of a survival guide on how to survive in space, basically. So why not have the students go home, prepare a list of things that they would take to space with them. Perhaps they can do a bit of research themselves, they can watch a few videos, and then come back to class, and then you have them apply the knowledge, have them in breakout rooms in Zoom. You can have groups of astronauts planning trips to the space station. They can prepare some kind of a presentation or a poster together, or just simply some kind of a description together, and then they can present back to the class. So this is how we can use flipped classroom in different approaches, rather than just giving them a writing activity, allowing them to kind of think more creatively, collaborate, and apply this knowledge in different ways. So as we come to the end really of the presentation, I think the main points today, we've looked at a lot of different things today. These keywords, creativity and interest. I think whenever we assign homework for our students, we should always take into account what is going to be more interesting for our students. Is it going to be a gap fill or creative task, a grammar task, or perhaps a project that uses the grammar rules and practices them? An act out or some kind of improvisation task for our students, memorizing, or actually doing a research task and finding out some new information, having an essay, some kind of written topic, or a presentation for the students, or simply answering comprehension questions about a topic, or turning these questions into a debate with your class. And I think that really at the very end of this, the engagement is ultimately going to lead to motivation. If you can pick out different topics, different tasks for your students, this is really going to help them engage and become motivated over time. Again, this is something that perhaps we shouldn't do at every lesson, but it's something that perhaps we can begin to implement in our classes. Perhaps you'll see a very positive difference if you try to assign some of these tasks every now and again for your students and keep them guessing. They'll never know which topic they're going to get next. Okay, so as we kind of finish then, I've shown you a lot of different tasks today, a lot of creative, collaborative, a lot of different tasks that perhaps require a lot of preparation on the side of the teacher, especially. And I think this question that you can see on the slide now is a very relevant question. And I think it's a very fair question from teachers. It's fine to show us all of these different tasks. It's fine to show us how exciting they can be and how helpful they can be, but it does require a lot more work for us, the teachers, and this is completely true. However, I think the world that we live in right now is probably the best example of how these creative tasks, how these collaborative tasks can be beneficial for our students. If we think back 1 year ago, I don't think any of us would have ever imagined that we would be teaching for this long and this extensively through Zoom with no contact with our students at all. And we've had to kind of improvise, we've had to adapt. Many of us perhaps have had to learn brand new skills using Zoom, for example, using interactive whiteboard software, using share screens, for example, that have been very difficult for us. Now, by engaging students and helping students in their homework to develop all of these skills, this could be, I think, one of the best ways to help them in the future. The skills that we're using right now in our classes can be very beneficial for them in the 21st century. And as teachers, we're not just motivators. We're not just motivators anymore. We're not just asking for students to do their homework. We are helping our students to be prepared for the challenges that they find in their future careers, in their academic studies. So why not start with homework? All of the skills that we've looked at today, we're using them on a daily basis in our Zoom lessons. So why not use homework as another way to engage students and help them to develop these skills? If all that fails at the end of the day, you can simply just say, keep calm and do your homework. I think that also helps too. So I'd like to thank you very much for listening today. You've been a great audience. It's been a pleasure to present for you. I have left a few minutes at the end, just in case there are any questions or any comments that you'd like to share.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful session. Thank you for sharing with us everything we need to know about this important topic. We are always complaining about homeworks, and especially our students and the excuses. Yes, totally true. Yes, they are always telling us some important excuses. One more excuse I was thinking about the students is that, for example, I couldn't do my homework because my parents were not at home. Right? Yes, that is another excuse that they are using every time we assign them homework. And well, I don't know if some of our teachers have some questions. Yes, you can write it in the chat box. Yes. Lourdes, can you help me with that? My glasses.
Yes, let me check.
Yes, if there are questions.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, everybody's just saying thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great exposition, excellent, yes.
Oh, here I have a question.
Yeah, says, right.
How do you encourage students to share their cameras without making it sound like an imposition, because you know that some adolescents do not want to share cameras or to show their faces. How can we manage these situations, Daniel?
Yeah, so that's a difficult question. I think a lot of students have self-confidence issues, especially adolescents too. They go through this time in their lives where they're very self-conscious. I think that's where, with online learning, we actually have the advantage of using these breakout rooms. I don't know if you're using Zoom right now to teach your classes, but this isn't something that Zoom offers, having breakout rooms. Perhaps the students aren't comfortable speaking to the whole class, but perhaps in smaller groups, they're more comfortable expressing themselves, and the teacher can simply go around and monitor. This can be one way to kind of help them to build their confidence. At the same time, we do need to acknowledge that, yeah, it is difficult for students to simply appear on camera straight away. So I think what I'd also advise is to just kind of be a bit more patient with the students, allow them perhaps to present something that's personal to them. This can be something that can help them to appear on camera. If they're just asked to answer questions, they might feel a bit on the spot. But if they prepare something personal, some kind of a project or something like that, perhaps they'll feel a bit more comfortable in appearing on camera and sharing it with the rest of the class. Maybe this could be something to help.
Thanks, Daniel. This was a question from Ms. Delia. Here we have the last question from Monica, Ms. Monica Calderon. She says, what is the best homework for kids of 6 or 7 years old? The first graders.
First graders. I think a lot of it goes to what we looked at in the first slides of the presentation. If you have very, very young children, 6 or 7 years old, we have a lot of coloring activities and things like that. It's not just coloring. You can have activities maybe where the students are learning how to write properly. So maybe some tracing activities, following some arrows or something, coloring things in, practicing vocabulary, some easy vocabulary maybe could be a good way to engage them. We know also that primary learners, very young learners, they're very tactile learners. So anything, making things, sticking things, maybe not use glue too much because that can be a disaster in the classroom, but using, different kind of classwork or craft work or projects can definitely help inspire younger students from what I've found.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Lourdes, that's everything? I guess.
Yes,
Okay.
because here we have, they want the recording.
Okay, of course.
Yes, they want that.
Don't worry about that.
Well, Miss Maria Teresa Campos says, we have the last question about virtual projects for preschoolers.
Yeah.
You think
this can be
can we have a kind of virtual projects for them?
This is an interesting question as well, because we're actually working on something new, a new talk right now that's focused precisely on this question: how to engage our very, very young students in online classes. But I think I think it is possible. It requires a lot of planning on behalf of the teacher, because very young students using Zoom, it can be something very difficult to manage. What I'd recommend is keeping it very simple. Again, maybe having a small group of the students prepare something very simple and just it doesn't have to be something very complicated, and just perhaps revising something that you've studied already, perhaps like a song or something like that they can recite together online, something like that, especially for preschool.
Yes, that's true. Okay, I think we are on the time. Yes. Right. Okay, so it's time for a break because we have another speaker. Thank you again, Daniel. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and hoping to have you again next time very soon. Right? Thank you so much. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, dear teachers, hello again. We are here again, okay, for the second part of our international summer course. Okay, let's see these general guidelines. Remember to mute your microphones during the session, please. We are going to give you certificates, but for your certificates, please, you have to fill in the form. We are going to put the link in the chat box and fill in with all the complete information required, especially your full name for your certificates. And remember, to obtain your certificates, you must attend both complete sessions. Okay? We will be sending your certificates from February 22nd on. And remember that at the very end, we are going to have a raffle, as always. Okay? So, Lourdes.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much. And, well, we will have, some teachers are asking about the link. The link will appear in some minutes, okay?
Yes.
Yes, teachers, it will appear, okay. And today, well, I have the pleasure to introduce Andy Sayer first. I know.
Yes,
Where
hello.
are you?
I'm here.
Of course, our great speaker
Hello,
today.
Andy. Hello.
Great to be here.
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, hello.
So today we have the pleasure to have this great speaker, Andy Kao. Andy, starting out as a graduate of German and English linguistics and an English language teacher. Andy has been in ELT publishing and training for 30 years, working in over 40 countries. Passionate about creative ELT materials and motivating teaching professionals. Andy is known for enthusiastic and practical talks, encouraging teachers to try new ideas and connecting language learning with the real world, okay? So Andy, it's here that lives in Glasgow with his family, yes? He likes playing the guitar and traveling, playing music too, and traveling around the world. Today representing Ellie Publishing. So Andy, yes, the floor is yours, and welcome to our international summer course.
Right. Oh, great. Now, let me just see if I can produce my own video and slides.
I stopped sharing. So you can share.
Yes,
Okay, that's great.
Yes,
okay.
Okay.
I'm looking for a full screen. I'm trying to hide my own picture. I don't want to see myself. Hang on. Okay. And I'm just going to share my screen.
Yes.
And here we go.
Okay.
It's great to see you all. Well, sort of, I can see most of you. And great to be here or there, or where are we, I wonder. Good to see you, Patty. How are you?
Whatever. Hello, Andy. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure. Good to be
Yes.
part of you, your event once more. I'm just moving my screen around a little bit so I can see what's being said and if I can look at the chat. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat. First of all, can you all see my screen? You should probably see my name and somebody holding a light bulb. Everybody who's watching, if you put yes, if you can see a light bulb and my name and details.
Yes, a light bulb, your name, yes.
Okay, great.
Your email address too.
Also, yeah, right.
Okay, great. So I just want to do a time check. Let me just check. I have, is it 50 minutes with you all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So I have about an hour to be as helpful as I can. It's good to be part of your day, and you've been very busy, I think, getting new ideas. So I hope I can add something to the discussion. I'm going to try something first. The first thing I want to say to everybody is actually this session with you is going to be very low on tech, and maybe that's a good thing for you. Maybe we've had enough technology. So I'm going to do some ideas with you that really will work. It's the sort of things that I do. They're the sort of things I do when I'm working in physical classrooms and helping teachers to really bring the course book to life. And this is something that also applies to teaching online, but I really can't emphasize enough that what you will see today is actually just the way that I like to work with a course book in any situation. It just so happens that it's going to be really good for Zoom. But I think we have enough technology for now. Although now that I've said that, there are two things that I have been playing with recently that I want to share with you right away, because they are very useful for interactive ways to get the students involved. And the first one I'm going to use with you is going to help me understand who you are today. I'm going to share a link with you, and it's a link that will allow you to vote on whether you are or to tell me in a survey. I'm going to do a live survey online now using a program called, an application called Mentimeter. I'll just put that in the chat, Mentimeter. Just stay with me for a moment. You can look it up later. And Mentimeter is a free and paid application for you or anyone to work with live audiences, and that includes a class, to create your own little survey. Now, I'm going to do one now to find out what kind of teachers you are regarding the ages of your students. Now, you can put in, I'm going to offer you a choice of preschool. Maybe you're a preschool teacher, maybe you're a primary teacher, maybe you're a secondary teacher, maybe you teach adults, maybe you teach higher education. And I'm going to give you a link now, and I'd like you to choose one or two. You can have up to two choices, because sometimes you're a primary teacher and a preschool teacher, right? So this is a survey. I'm going to put in the link into the chat. There you go. And I'd like you in the next minutes just to open that link and maybe navigate out of this a little bit. Don't leave my event, don't leave the course, but go and look at this link, and you can choose one or two options. And I'm going to look on my screen to see and share with you the results. Okay, so go to the link, and you can tell me by clicking preschool, or you can click on primary, or you can click on secondary or higher education or adults. Or if you have two particular age groups, you can do that too. And I'm going to quickly come out of my slides here and see if I can look at this happening online. Where are we? Okay, you'll see me flicking around browsers like crazy, and let me just find it, moving that out of the way. Keep voting. Tell me what kind of teaching you do. Are you preschool, primary, secondary, adult, or higher education? Okay, now, can you see my screen? And I can see live the results as they come in on the screen. I'm letting people in. Now, can you see? I'm going to try and make this bigger now. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Okay. Whoops. Whoops. I missed my little button there. Okay, let me go back in. I'm just going to get the results. Don't know what happened there. This is technology working hard for me. So there you can see, and I'm just going to find out my results and see the percentage of who is teaching in which age group. Bear with me. Let me see my results. I had them there for a moment. Did you see them? I absolutely had them. Still looking. It's coming. It's coming. So many people voting. Okay. And there, I hope you can see Can you see the percentage of all of you out there who voted? I can see now, I'm going to screenshot that because I find that very useful for me. And I can see that 39% of my audience with you today, 40% are secondary, 30% primary. We have 9% preschool, 10% adult, and 12% higher education. That's actually very useful, quite typical, I think, for the sessions that we do. And I'm going to quickly go to the chat to see, did you all see that? Did you see how that worked, that I suddenly had a survey result coming in live? Let me see if I can see the chat. Can you see that on the screen? Put yes, if you can see that survey result,
No,
or no. You can't see it. Okay, I stopped my share and I'm going to share again. Let me share my screen again. All right, maybe now you can see it.
Yes, yes.
So you all voted, and as you voted, you gave me the information of the kinds of teaching that you do. And this was a live, just by giving you that link, this was me using something called Mentimeter. And I suppose I want to ask you, first of all, has anyone used Mentimeter before? Because all I'm going to do is show you where to go to do this. You can do it for free, and you can do it with your students. So have you seen or heard of Mentimeter before? Anybody? Yes, lots of yeses. Okay. So I did this because I was curious to know my audience. You need to know how I'm going to help my audience. Great. If you haven't used it before, go and check out Mentimeter. There are tutorials, and if you want to pay for it, you can do more questions. But the free version means you can only have 3 questions every session, and you can delete them and start again. This is not a technology session, but I thought that was quite interesting because here's another thing I want to share with you. Mentimeter is a good way to maybe take the questions out of your course book, or when there's a questionnaire in your course book, or maybe there's, normally you would go around the room finding somebody who has a hobby, somebody who hates fish, somebody who doesn't eat meat. Now you can use these online surveys. So Mentimeter is a good one. But how about this? Have you tried something like this? I'm going to stop my share, start again. Okay, share again. Can you see something here called, which looks like present simple, past simple? Can you see a screen which says wheelsofnames.com?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great.
Wheel, yes, right.
Well, you just go to wheelofnames.com and you can put in the names of your students. So let's have Bob, we can have Patty, okay. We'll put Fiorella. I don't know if she's watching, but she can go in. Susan,
yes, she is. Yes, she is.
David, give me some more names. Give me some more names. Lourdes,
Lourdes, yes.
I need some more names for my class.
Maria. Mari Carmen. Okay.
Carmen.
Yes, that's it.
And you can see it goes on. Andy, Edith, my mum's name. One more name?
Yes.
We have.
Okay, my friend Aldo. My friend Aldo is in Peru, and Rosie, who may be watching, I don't know. Rosie. And there you see instantly for free, I can click the wheel and it chooses a name for me. And this is quite useful if you want students to go and do their own names for their own groups to play games or choose each other. Oh, it has sound, or I can take the sound away. And that's a nice way to choose students, right? If you haven't seen that before, that's called Wheel of Names. But then I did something else. Then I thought, maybe I could forget about names. Maybe I could get it to choose questions. So I put in, for example, questions. Who, when, where, how, why, and maybe I could add what. Then I spin the wheel. And now I have a quick way to pick question words. So when you're looking at a picture, or maybe you're doing a topic, now you could maybe open 2 tabs. One of them would show the names of your class, and the other one maybe has some what, why, who question words. What do you think? It's really cool, huh? And here's the final idea. I put in, maybe you could do it with verbs. So I put in maybe I, you, they, we, he, she, it. Have I missed anything? No, okay. And now we've got a verb, okay? And I can do the wheel again to see if it can choose the pronoun. All right, so I've got to do he, maybe you've got a verb, and maybe I could be really clever and I can have, if this is for maybe the more advanced students who have, I need to stop that now. I wanted to stop. Okay, just gonna stop the noise. If I put in the tenses, I could also tell the wheel, I just write in the names of the tenses. And so if I have a verb and I've chosen a pronoun, now I can click the wheel and the student has to decide, right, he, you've got your verb, and now they have to do something in the present continuous. So that's just a quick way of showing you something that I found. Maybe you've seen it. It's called wheelofnames.com, and you simply add in here, you know, the words and names and things you need. And it's a really cool way to kind of bring, you know, more interaction into the classroom, which is virtual, and also a way of picking on students without them thinking that it was you. It could maybe be a nice random name generator. What do you think of that, guys? Have you seen that before? In the chat, have you seen name picking before from these wheels? Ah, it's called Wheel
of Names.
Look. Can I find it for you? Let's move my.
Yes, they are asking.
That's called Wheel of Names.
The name.
Okay, I'm putting it into the chat.com. So if you need it, I've put it into the chat, wheelofnames.com. And I thought I would do those things really quickly because Mentimeter and this is just a couple of things which you can use in the classroom and adapt as any way you like. I think the students would like this, and you can ask them, hey, what could we do with this? And let them give you some ideas. And remember, we're going to link this to the topics and the language work we're doing with our classes. Primary, adult, teenagers, it doesn't matter. So Wheel of Names, it's not just for names. You could put in topics. Maybe it could be, you could put in yesterday, last night, this morning, 4 hours ago, and then they click the wheel, and then the student has to speak about what they did according to the choice that's made. I really thought that was quite a nice one. And I've seen that before, but I hadn't really shared it with teachers before because I wanted to make sure it was okay live. So I'm going to go into my slides now, and keeping in mind, I know now the age groups that you teach, and I just perhaps more formally want to thank you again for having me here whilst I talk some ideas through with examples of course books to show you how I can keep the students focused on my lesson. Teaching online, of course, but also you can do this absolutely when you go back to normal, which we hope is soon. And I'm going to use examples from Ellie Publishing, who are the people with whom I'm working at the moment, and with Nutessa, who give me the opportunity to talk to teachers and share ideas that you can use with any course book. But I'll pick some examples today from theirs, and you can check out all their materials at ellieonline.com. And before I move on any further, can you see some pictures here? 6 pictures. In the chat, can you see 6 pictures?
Yes, yes.
Okay, guys. So 6 pictures. I'm going to imagine that you're my students now. I know that you're highly intelligent professional teachers, but I'm going to pretend you're kind of students who aren't too keen. Just for now, because I want to make this easy for everybody, because I'm warming up my class, okay? Just put in words of things that you can see in any of the pictures. Because I just want my students to be looking and thinking, oh, I can do this. That's an easy question. What can I see in the pictures? All right. So just put the words in the chat. What words can you see from any of these 6 pictures? All right. We've got castle. Great. Anna Maria, thank you. Ocean, snow, Miss Medalith. Nice one. Oruna. Okay. Mountain, snow, trees, sky. So we're brainstorming words. Great, thank you. Gertrude's lovely names. Frederick, I should put these names in my wheel of names. Yeah, travel destinations, ocean. Well, that's interesting. It does look like an ocean, but we're going to learn in a minute that it's not an ocean. You couldn't know that. So now I'm telling you something and you're going, what does he mean? It's not an ocean. It looks like an ocean to me. And then I can say something quite provocative to you. Hey guys, did you know that in picture number 3, it's actually not the sea? What does he mean? So I hope you're going to listen to find out what on earth am I talking about? And number 2, castle. Then I think, what is number 4? Does anyone know the word for number 4? What is that tall thing in number 4? What is the tall thing in number 4? Lighthouse, yes. Who can teach me the Spanish for lighthouse? Because I don't know any Spanish, but I like words. Faro. Oh, is it? I should have known that. Okay, because I know that word. Faro. Okay. Now, that's tall, but look at the tall thing next to it in picture number 5. Is that a lighthouse? No. What does it look like? It's a tree. Okay. Now I'm getting my students to think more carefully now. What kind of tree? A little tree or a big tree? It's a sequoia. That's superb. Right on the button. You know these. It's a jungle pet, maybe. A very tall tree. Yeah, exactly. It's an enormous tree. In fact, students, teachers, let me tell you, number 5 is the tallest tree in the world. And I have it just on my laptop, my little picture. So, now what am I doing? Okay, yeah, it's the tallest tree in the world. Now, look at number 4. No, I know. Let's look at number 1. What is number 1? Okay, what is number 1? What is it? It's Everest. So what is Everest in our encyclopedia, in our knowledge? If number 5 is the tallest tree in the world, what is number 1? Everest is, I want a full sentence. Okay, you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. So I want my students to see what's going on here. I'm focusing on pictures. I start simple: tree, lighthouse, mountain. Okay, I don't care what level or what age, I'm just keeping them interested. Okay, and they're only looking at pictures. And if I've got a class of maybe 30 students and I can see their names, I might pick on some people. Okay, now I'm going to make this a little harder. So they all have something in common. This is my next kind of question. Number 1 is the highest mountain. Number 5 is the tallest tree. Now, number 3, let's think. I'm going to tell you it's not the sea, it's not the ocean, and it's not a river. So what can it be? A lake. Yeah. Thank you, Anna Maria. Thank you, Rosario. Thank you, Frederick. It's a lake, right? And you're going, my goodness. And I'm going, well, think about it, students. If Everest is the tallest mountain and number 5 is the tallest tree, what is number 3? What is number 3? It's a lake, but it's a special lake. It is the biggest lake in the world. It is the largest, deepest freshwater lake in the world. Do you know where it is? Do you know where it is? Where is it? It is a beautiful lake. I almost went there one year. I never went, but no, not Titicaca. It's not the Caspian Sea. All right, it's in Russia. The largest freshwater lake in the world is in Russia. Now, Angie Nolasco Zevelos, thank you for saying longest river. Number 3 is not the longest river. But what picture do you think is the longest river? It's not number 1. I don't think it's number 4 because that's lighthouse. Number 5 is the tree. Number 6, exactly. Baikal, Betsy Ramos. Ramos Betsy, thank you. Number 3, don't worry about the names. We're going to come to the names in a minute. I want my students to be thinking about the language. I'm speaking a little bit quickly because you're excellent teachers of English, but I can speak very slowly. Number 1 is the tallest mountain. And look at my passion. Look at me, I'm excited. Now I know teaching is really hard and it's very tiring, but students learn from passionate teachers. This lesson is hopefully interesting. It's leveled, but look at me, I'm interested, I care, right? And if a student thinks, wow, the teacher really seems to want to do this, I'm gonna, and I think the way that I speak and the way that I control I can't quite see my face at the moment. I've changed my screen, but I want to think, yeah, I care. This is the first time I've ever done this lesson. Okay, no, it isn't. Okay, but they don't know that. So you're like a performer. You're kind of going, yeah, great. Lake Baikal. How many times have I talked about this? How many times have I taught the present perfect? Zillions of times. But for you, it's going to feel like the first time, because then you think, wow, this is great. Maybe not. But you see my point. It's not just the course book. It's not just the activities. It's how I speak. I have my intonation. I'm enthusiastic. And I'm really trying to get into the camera and be with you, okay? And of course, I don't see all your faces at the moment. We have maybe 200 people, but with your class, you really have to try to put that effort in. This isn't forever, guys. I think we're looking at the beginning of the end of this awful crisis, but you know, it does take extra effort for us to be that teacher, okay? Now, I'm gonna tell you here the names. Now, I moved my slide too quickly. Let me quickly move the lesson along because that would take ages. Number 1 is the tallest mountain, Everest. Number 2 is the smallest republic, and I'll come to that, it's in Italy. 3 is Lake Baikal. It's the deepest lake, biggest lake, freshwater lake in the world. Number 4 is not the biggest lighthouse, but what is it sitting on? What is the lighthouse actually on? Is it in the water or is it on something else? I'm just looking at the chat. It's on a rock. It's on an island. Yeah, you're right. You're both right. You're all right. You're teachers. We're always right. It's a rock, but technically speaking, it is also an island. And if Everest is, you can see the superlatives. We have the tallest, highest mountain, the tallest tree, the biggest lake. So what is number 4? If it's an island, it is anybody else want to join in here? It's the smallest island in the world. And let me tell you, until I did this book, I didn't know the answer myself. So I've learned something. And I think it's really cool when you tell students that when you prepare a lesson, you're telling them that you learn something too. I don't want to be the boss all the time. I've got to manage my class. I've got to help them learn English, but I'm not here to be the expert on everything. I didn't know what the smallest island was. And I think if you can come down to the students' level of knowledge and learn with them, that's really cool. And number 6 is a river. It is the longest river in the world. So where is the longest river? Some students might know that, but you probably know this because you're teachers. Where is the longest river in the world? All right, anybody? Correct, but what is the name of the river, students? Amazon? No, Amazon's the second longest, I believe. It's the Nile, the River Nile. Yes, the smallest island. We're going to come to this. So, okay, students, teachers, okay, take a break. Okay, when I say take a break, I'm just going to guide you to the next part. So this is what I did here. I showed 6 pictures, and then I did as much as I could without anybody feeling bad. All right, I didn't want anybody feeling they're stupid. We're all joining in together to help us. You have the highest lake in the world. Indeed, you do. And I want to go there when I come back, because I am coming to Peru when this is all over, because I still haven't seen Machu Picchu. But I've had a lot of ceviche, pisco sours, and coffee, and I thought that was a really good start. Anyway, so this is not a general knowledge quiz, is it? What are we teaching? Your country is the best. Of course it is. I will, thank you. What are we teaching here? Superlatives, maybe comparatives. But we hide it behind some general knowledge, okay? Now, you do this already, but I'm going to show you something that's really important about what I'm doing in a moment. So far, you're probably doing this already, okay? Maybe not, but let's see. And I made this into a little activity where we talked a little bit at the beginning. And then I could maybe ask you to go away and you could work in groups, or you could work with pairs. The students can text each other. I don't mind how you work with your students in breakout rooms or in, you know, WhatsApp groups. You can have the students before the class as part of your online lessons. They could be in certain WhatsApp groups, and they've got to figure out a nice little activity here. You know, I could also, you know, ask them to put them in the right order, to put number 1 with E. Number 2 goes with San Marino. Now, they may not know that, but they soon will. And then I made it an activity. Now, so far, so good. And so far, maybe interesting. But look where I took it from. I took it from a course book. If you want to know the course book, it doesn't matter really. It's not really my objective is to tell you about the course book. I'm telling you about the idea I used from course books. I think this came, I can't remember. I think it's called Sprint by LE Publishing. Anyway, the point is, you don't have to have this course book. But the idea is, when we look at a course book, it's so tempting to open the page, the students see the page, and then the students, you look at it, you know, unless we think about it, we think, okay, there's pictures, the students are already reading, and you're asking the students not to read, but they are reading because they're worried about questions. And then they're thinking, oh my goodness, I don't understand all this. Oh, I don't know this. And that's what I want to stop. That's why I did this, okay? I'm aware that the students are going to feel overwhelmed. They are usually overwhelmed by coursebook pages. And coursebooks, we have to remember, are not the be-all and end-all of your lesson. For me, a coursebook is just bits and pieces stuck together in a decent order of syllabus and activities. But for me, I'm brutal with coursebooks. Sometimes they're great coursebooks, sometimes they're not, but I only want what I need for my objective. And so when it comes to a lesson, the objective of this lesson is for the students to, in this case, understand how to work with superlatives and comparatives. Now, the text that they're going to see is kind of interesting. They're going to learn a little bit about Everest, a little bit about a big lake, a small island, and so on. But if we went straight to that lesson, we turn the page and boom, what it becomes immediately is a reading lesson. And maybe it's interesting to match the picture with the text. Okay, I'll show you. That's what we normally do, isn't it? But it's not very interesting. I think it's a nice page. I'm working with the people who made this book, so of course, but I think you agree it's a nice design. It's amazing facts, but it's not that amazing unless I make it more amazing. Do you see what I mean? So I took, now, maybe by now, you've learned to maybe copy and paste from things on your laptop. I mean, I'm more than happy to help you, but I think by now we've learned at least to do that. You copy and paste. So I did that. I took the 6 pictures, okay, and then I just put them into a slide, a PowerPoint slide, all right? And then I just thought, right, I'm going to work with this because when I am working here, I know I have complete control over 2 things. One, the students can only see what I want them to see. They're not looking all around. They're not flicking through the book to one. They're not worried about the next exercise because they don't know what's coming. I might just forget this and come on to something else. In a course book, there is a feeling in the student that you're going to go from one page to the next. And I don't believe that's very interesting or even relevant. I want them to get the language, inspire them to think about some new things. And of course, I'm linking it to something real. Everybody, most kids know about Everest. They may not know about San Marino. They'll maybe know about the longest river, the Nile, Amazon. They won't know about the tree, but they can pretty much understand that there's a tall tree in the world somewhere, okay? So we're pulling out some natural content and hiding that into the language that we're teaching, or vice versa. So that's what I wanted to show you first of all. We've got to take the course book and break it up. And I think one of the advantages of teaching on Zoom or online now is you have absolutely that possibility. What do I want the students to see and only see? How can I just navigate them from one piece of language to the next and then to build up. And then, of course, what could we do here? Where could we go from here, guys? What could we do next? Because, of course, the students can read now with a bit more, they've been warmed up. All right, just watching the chat there. Maybe I could break the students out into 6 groups, all right? And maybe for homework, they can go and Google their own picture. So maybe group 1 has Everest, group 2 has San Marino. And here's the other thing. I really want you to get this part, is I would send the students, maybe on this one, to go and do a couple of things. Maybe Google about the particular picture in their own language, in Spanish, if that's their first language. I'm not testing their English now. I want them to find out more facts and interesting things that's easy to read in Spanish, fine. And then maybe in the next lesson, maybe they can bring in examples to give a short presentation, or maybe do some writing, if you want to do writing, about Everest or about Lake Baikal. In other words, or maybe produce another page like this. Maybe they could work in groups, and they're using tallest, deepest, biggest. They could work in groups, and their job, okay, because you've done some work. I'm going to show you a little bit more practice, but they've done some work. You've got the idea of teaching them bigger than, taller than, the tallest, the deepest. And then maybe they could do some research about these things. Maybe they could do some things about Peru, the biggest, the highest mountain in Peru. Okay, what is the highest mountain in Peru? Maybe I could learn. Exactly. So what's the highest? Maybe they're doing a magazine page for Andy. Huascaran. Huascaran? Okay, that sounds beautiful. Huascaran. Okay, what's the biggest lake? The highest lake, somebody told me. The highest lake in Peru. God, I wish I was in Peru right now. We'd have such a good time. Okay, Titicaca, yes. Now I don't know the tallest tree in Peru, but maybe we could do well, give me some examples. Give me some examples of superlatives within the geography of Peru. Come on, what could we do? Deepest, biggest, longest, tallest, fastest? What could we do? Mountains we've done. The best teachers. Yes, where are the best? The best teachers in Peru are in, and you could put your city, the oldest city, the highest volcano. That, see, I'm still a child. I still like volcanoes, although only the ones that don't work. The longest wave. A long wave, wow. The biggest green area. Oh, the dangerous. Okay, now Gertrudes Tolentino, you brought up the dangerous roads first. I've been to Lima many times, and I've been in your traffic, and I have to say Lima has some of the most challenging driving skills I have ever seen. The roads are amazing. Okay, so you get let's not waste any more time. But you see how we took a simple page with pictures and text. We see them all the time. What can we do? Let's go backwards. Feed the language very carefully. Let them work with me. Then we can do some reading. Then they can create their own page. And imagine, they've got 3 or 4 days to work in groups of 3. They've got to get 6 pictures off the internet and write 6 little texts. And if I was teaching in Peru, I would love this, because I would learn, and it doesn't have to be Peru. You could do a country that they vote for. Maybe the students have a particular interest in a country. Fine, I don't care. I want them to use good English to do comparatives and superlatives, and then let them choose the topics. Okay, you don't want to drive in Lima. Yeah, okay. You can also take a picture dictionary. I use picture dictionaries all the time. LE Publishing, you can Google on their website the picture dictionaries, and maybe I could locate those things. Lake Baikal, okay, or the tallest tree, and all those things. Okay, so just take the best food in the world. It's funny how Peru has all the best things. Isn't that interesting? Now, last time I went to Peru, I then went to Chile, and funny enough, the Chile people in Chile said that they had the best pisco sour, but I said to them that people in Peru didn't agree, and so I just cause an argument with the students. Then they'll start speaking, right? Okay, it's false. Of course it's false. I'm just getting a reaction. So here's another example. Okay, now look at this page again. This is from, I think this is from a book called Flash on English. Again, I'm just giving you the reference, okay? Oh, I've just sent it to Patricia, not the whole, everybody else. Hang on, let me just put it into the chat. Everybody, you can see that this is from a book called Flash on English. Okay, the Third World War, how to start a war. Go and tell the Peruvian people that the Chileans invented pisco sour. No, I was only joking, humor. Okay, so natives around the world. So then I thought, okay, this applies to lots of those content pages. So same thing. I look at this book and I think of my students and I think, oh my goodness, if they see this tomorrow, they're going to be really panicking. They're going to think, oh my God, it's a reading lesson. Blah. I'm going to have to read out loud. Blah. And nobody cares. Well, I'll make them care by adapting the course book with my own copy and paste. So I took the pictures. All right, there you can see 3 pictures. And there are 3 types of natives from those pictures. And I simply create a slide. And it's worth the effort because look, all I've done here is make a simple multiple choice, and the students would have to look at this. Maybe they could describe, or maybe before you show the ABC suggestions, they can guess where these people might be from. All right, and then if they don't know, they're going to learn. And I took out some of the pages to look at those faces. Look at that face when she's dancing. I would be terrified if I was dancing with her. Wow, gosh, but I'd like the costume. Yeah, I could wear that costume. I'd like to. That's from the Maoris in New Zealand. Okay, so what I did was I went to the page and I just chopped it up because I want the students to do only what I want them to see. And here I might give them a chance to just specialize. Certain groups do only one text and they come back to try and understand it and present it, you know. What I like here is it actually gets them to think about organizing vocabulary and mind mapping. And maybe, of course, comparing cultures. And we know Peru has such a wonderful cultural history of Native Americans and Incas and all those customs and festivals that go with Peru. So I give them the platform from the course book and then we personalize it. For example, they could do mind mapping about different regions, different food, different customs. So this all comes back to taking a coursebook page and doing it differently. Here's another example, okay? Now, you won't believe what this page looks like. This comes from a page, 4 pages of very good coursebook content for teaching a particular tense or 2. But we'll come to that in a moment. In fact, you know what? I'll go there now. I'll show you. Let me just show you. Oops, don't worry, don't panic. Look at these pages. Can you all see 4 pages? It looks like it says Unit 9, is it chance? Can you see that? Put yes if you can see Unit 9 with 4 pages. Can you see that in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Karen, Rosemary, Laura Sedano. That is the longest name in Peru. Okay, Leah Cordova. Wow, lovely names. Gabi, Hugo. So look at those pages, perfectly normal pages for a course book. All right. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if I open this book, and I used to teach 30 years ago, and I still would do this now. I would not go straight into the course book online or in the physical classroom, because they're just going to be all over the place. You remember in the classroom when we're physically in the classroom, you're trying to say, guys, okay, heads up. Okay, close your books. Everyone pay attention. How can you keep their attention? Because in the classroom, in the physical classroom, they're just looking and, okay, stop reading the course, stop reading the course book. Look at me. Yeah, good. Okay, guy, they're still. So this is the great thing about Zoom. Now, if I show those pages as they are, it's still too much on the camera and it's too much in the classroom. I want to elicit the language I'm teaching before I show them in the course book. And in all those pages that you just saw, you probably didn't notice, but there was a little cartoon at the bottom of page 4. And that's where I'm going to start my lesson, instead of what you're going to see, which is something else. Because I think pictures are absolutely wonderful to get the students to think about what language we're teaching in context from a memorable point of view. Now, look at this picture. What's happening? Okay, we're doing the present continuous. What's happening? What can you see, guys? What's happening? Who wants to write some full sentences? Because you're my students. What can you see in the picture? What's happening? An old woman is drinking tea. Thank you. An old lady is drinking some coffee. Okay, thank you. My grandma, oh, that's nice. You personalized it. That's sweet. Okay. Okay, she's having a coffee while the dog, yeah. Okay, just leave my chat. A dog having a cup of tea. Why not? Yeah, we don't know. Maybe she's going to give the dog some tea. My dog is lying down there. She's waiting for her dinner. Grandma's talking to her pet. Okay. Okay, so there's an old lady is drinking tea or coffee. A dog is sitting with her. Okay, what about this one? Now what's happening? She's waiting. Yeah, maybe. What's happening now? Sentences, anybody? They're stealing the little dog. Oh no. A man is stealing the dog, I say, is the best thing, really. Poor dog, exactly. Well, hey guys, maybe she stole the dog in the first place and the boys are taking it back. We don't know. I always like to, provoke my students. The man is distracting the woman. Yes. Okay. Trying to steal their dog napping. I like that. Dog napping. Can you see my dog down here? Come on. See my dog. Bella, say hello to my friends in Peru. Bella, can you see my friends? Oh, okay. Okay. So, right, they're stealing the. She'll want money for appearing on camera. She's very expensive. Now, okay. So the lady is waiting for friends. Yes, the dog is tired. She's so busy doing nothing all day, so that she's drinking coffee or tea. The dog is sitting with her. Then a man or a boy is distracting her, and the other one is stealing the dog. All right. So what about now? Now what's happening? There's a dog on the table. There's a dog in the briefcase. Yes, it's tea time. Remember what tense I wanted to use here. She's drinking. They're stealing. He's distracting. Now what are they doing? She's screaming at the top of her lungs. She's yelling. All right. I want present continuous. She's realized. Okay. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. And they're running away. Okay. 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 Stop. Okay. Okay. I get students to stop. Thank you. Perfect. Now, this isn't happening at the moment, students. Oh, no, 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 no. This was last week. Okay, this is last week. And the students go, what do you mean? Yes, it's true. It's a true story. No, it's not. Okay, it's not. But it happened last week. You go, okay. So last week, the old lady is drinking coffee. Is that right? And the students go, no. Last week, and some students are going, And then we say, at the moment, she's drinking coffee, but this is last week. So she, and you pull that from the students. She was drinking coffee. Okay, and what was the dog doing? The dog was to sit down. The dog was sitting, yeah? Thank you, yeah. She was drinking a pisco sour from a teacup. Okay, any pisco sour is good, as long as it's Peruvian, I suppose. Yes, and then what happened? She was drinking her coffee, and then in the second picture, what was happening then? A boy was talking to her. She was, well, you've used a passive. Remember your students now. The boy was distracting her. Another boy was stealing the dog. Keep it very simple, all right? Remember, we want past continuous now. So then at the end, she was screaming. We don't want passives, okay? The students may say that, but I want them to see that this is continuous action in the past, all right? The men were running away. The woman was screaming, okay? Now all of this, I'm eliciting from the pictures. Maybe you can use the coursebook's prompts, because the prompts come with the coursebook inside the unit. So maybe if the students are struggling, you can show them a little bit more of the coursebook. All right, and then they can use that as prompts. And of course, as I make it clearer and clearer that the students are supposed to be thinking in the past about a continuous action, we can use these questions as a prompt. All right, now just look at this thing here. I made this with PowerPoint. It took me, I think, 30 seconds to find the page and cut with my mouse the pictures and the prompts. And I think that is so much more important than taking them to the students page, which I will quickly whiz to now. Okay. If you can see on the slide, can you see where I took that picture from? Can you see it in the bottom right-hand corner? And you know, it's okay where it is. You know, it's the opportunity at the end of the unit for the students to do some speaking practice. Try not to look, in fact, maybe you're already looking, but if you're looking at the pages, you might be distracted, but look at the bottom right-hand corner. It looks like a simple practice activity, and that's okay. It could be. But when I look at course books, I'm always looking for something that I could take to begin the lesson. And that's what I thought my start could be. Because you can see here that these 4 pages, I mean, you can see the slides later because I'm going to send you all of the slides, but you can see that there's a very lovely progression through past simple and past continuous. And it's okay if you do this, but I want teachers to be much more focused what they show the students to elicit the language and keep their attention. All right. So let's do another example. Okay. Now I've gone to the front of the book, the front of the unit. And now that I've taught the past continuous, I could do something a bit more to do with content. Because like geography earlier, big lakes, big mountains, tall trees, I'm thinking, well, this is great because I can do something about history. Now, some of these names will be familiar to you and some of them will not be. But maybe the first question I can ask the students, whilst they're thinking of the past continuous, this could be lesson 2, the next lesson, where we're going to go over the past continuous and past simple again, but I don't give them a big long text and I don't dive into the course book. I let them look at these pictures. How did I do this? I copied out the book. I could even take a photograph and stick it into my PowerPoint. And I look at the students and I say, what do these people all have in common? Do you know any of these names? Okay, and then we elicit that what do they have in common, all these people? Sorry, I've moved my slide. Sorry, oops, I'll show you that in a second. What do these people all have in common? Well, they're more than celebrities. Well, they are celebrities, but they are achievers, they are inventors. Or in the case of Columbus, sorry everybody, Columbus was also not an inventor, he was an explorer. All right. So yes, they're achievers. Yes, they're celebrities. But I want to think about the kind of historical, cultural content. Now, it's in the past. And then I tell you what I could do. Maybe a flipped classroom. I could get the students in groups to go away and read about these people just a little bit in Spanish. So they learn in it. I don't want them to be doing any English homework on this. They could simply go away and Google in Spanish, Isaac Newton, Archimedes, Columbus, in order to tell the class the basic facts, some of the basic things. Basically, what did they discover? Where did they live? Just some basic facts. And of course, in the course book, you have an activity where, yes, they are men, that's true. I'm sorry about that. But we can certainly make the activity to think about women who have been inventors or explorers. I'm just going to put the light on because I'm in Scotland and it's going dark here. Hang on. I don't know if that's better. So the students might then, because they've been doing past simple, past continuous with you, they can now look at some of these texts and match them to the picture. They change the world. So, number 1, I was at home in Syracuse I was having a bath when I had a good idea, a great idea. So number one goes with who? Who does that go with? Yeah, Archimedes. Number two, it was a sunny day and I was sitting under an apple tree when an apple fell on my head and I discovered gravity. So that's A. So you see the activity there. Now that comes from that page. This page is the beginning unit of the past continuous and past simple. So if you want to take a look at that, that's great. I don't really want you to lose your way by looking at all these bits and pieces on the page, which is exactly what the students do with every course book. They're looking around, they're thinking, they're worrying, but the great thing about picking things I want is I have their attention. And of course, I haven't really talked about pair work today or group work too much. I'm talking about how you take control of how you lead your students to understand and then use language, perhaps and preferably through some personalization or something that's really useful to learn about, you know, explorers or, you know, big trees and tall lakes or whatever. And then I can start to be more detailed in the language. I don't really want them overwhelmed. Okay. And here, for example, then I might be ready to show them a text, which in this case, sorry, you'll see these slides later. I'm trying to go back a bit. What have I done here? Yeah, so for example, here's a text in that first unit. After we've done the explorers, then there's a short text on the invention or the discovery of rugby. Okay, this text, we don't have time to read it, but it tells us how rugby, the sport in the UK and other countries, was discovered. Okay, but as I said earlier, why make it so hard? Why don't we just take the picture? And then the students feel a lot different. Look at the difference. Looking at the picture, looking at the text. When the students see a text, they know what's coming. Hard work, comprehension, death by language lesson. And I don't want that. I want to just keep them alive long enough to feel, well, this is interesting. What's going on here? The students may not know what the sport is. So that's the first thing, isn't it? What's happening, guys? What are they playing? Somebody says football, someone says American football, somebody says basketball, you know, and then we think, no, it's rugby. What's rugby? Somebody knows, somebody doesn't know. I'm just pulling the students together all the time and I'm picking on them in the Zoom class. I can ask them, what do we know? Anyway, as we get to understand, the students would read the text and we learn. But then there's an exercise. I can get them to find examples of the past simple and the past continuous. So before they have to, no reading aloud, no comprehension, can they find examples of the past simple in the text? And they can do this with you on Zoom. They could use some of the tools or they can actually do a little video on their own interactive version of the book. When you get the books, you can have access to the digital book, but my friends at Nutessa can explain how that happens. And then I can say, look, can you put in examples of the past continuous? And then maybe they can highlight that too. Maybe you could send them the snapshot of the text and they can use their own digital tools to highlight in one color, past simple, and in another, the past continuous. And they could screenshot it and send it back to you or share it in Google Documents or on things like Padlet. Wherever you send, you share the information with students with each other. So here's an exercise in identifying the grammar now that we've been teaching it. And the things that I've done would not happen in one lesson, but I'm just showing you examples of how we take a lot of text from course books, a lot from any course book, however well designed, and this breathes okay, there's text, there's pictures, but we want them to just focus. You pull the language out, give it some context, and then we can start to do the difficult work. There we go. I started here. Then I went, well, I didn't today, but you could go to some more controlled practice of she was sitting, the dog was sitting, the robbers were taking. Then I went over to a text to see the examples of the past and simple and past continuous. Then I did some work with, normally in the book, looks like it was starting. So there's no real fixed rule on how we teach with our course books, but it's really important that we don't overwhelm them and we pick things out as we go. Now, I think I've reached really the end of my presentation and the time that we have. Obviously, we could do this all day. And in a workshop, when I come to Peru, when I see you, we can get our hands dirty by getting into the course books and analyzing the page and thinking, right, what is the objective of the lesson? That's the main thing. Where do we want them to get to after 45 minutes? If I give them too much course book, it's just too much. How can I use as little as possible to get the maximum language production from the students? Oh, there's me playing the guitar in Lima. It's true, I did it. I want to come back with my guitar. And get the students to really think about, you know, what you want them to do with the language, and not be overwhelmed with too many questions, too much text, because it's much more fun, it's more engaging, and you really have the attention of the students for a lot longer. And the final thing to say is, I hope you can see that this is not about teaching online alone. This is something we must do in the physical classroom. And that's how I teach. And it's something I love to share with teachers as we look at our course books differently to analyze what we need to reach the language learning outcomes of our students. So I think I've reached the end. I'm happy to take, thank you for the thank yous. Thank you. No, thank you. Remember, passion. Try and keep going. Let the students follow your passion. Look like you've never done it until today because it's fresh. Of course, I'd love to be with you in person, and one day soon I will, and we can pick out any course books you want and apply the same techniques. It doesn't take lots of technology, whoops, and you can always drop me a line with my information there. Let me just put some links to help you before I go. Let me go. There are some links for you to look at before I leave. I'll take any questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll try. I've put in links there to contact me or Ellie, or some links for using course books online. And I even put down the wheel of names. But it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I hope I haven't gone too long. You can always email me if you have any questions or need any help. And I will make these slides available to you through Natasa, which they can send to you probably tomorrow. No problem. There's my email. And I hope that was useful. Any questions? I'll wait for a minute or two. You're very kind. Thank you. Thank you, Lourdes. Do you have any questions for me? I can help.
Yes, because
I think you might have the next presentation coming.
Yes.
This is where I would leave the room and go and have a pisco sour.
Lots of things, because
I might go and look up Lake Titicaca. I've never been there.
Yes.
How far from Lima is Lake Titicaca? That's my question.
It's lake because it's in the south. Yes.
Do you go in the Titicaca or the Titi bus or the Lake Titi tram? Or yes, I want to go to Peru.
You have to. You have to.
Yes.
Any questions before I go?
Yes, I know. But I think you give us lots of ideas.
Website, back to the slides. The slides will be available to you soon. EllieOnline.com is where you can check out sample pages.
Excellent.
I referred to books like Sprint, Flash on English. I also used vocab in pictures for the map of the world. I used vocab in pictures, and there's also an illustrated dictionary. Right. So thank you so much. I think I better leave now, Lourdes and Patty. Everybody, thank you so much. You can follow Ellie online.
Thank you.
You can go to the Facebook page for Ellie Publishing.
Thank you.
And if you look at Ellie Multimedia on YouTube, I've done more videos on using pictures, readers, whatever. If you go to Ellie Multimedia, that's on YouTube. There are videos and ideas there from me and colleagues on doing the best we can as English teachers. Thank you for working so hard. Thank you for attending. And it's goodbye from me. Try to remember to keep it simple and focused. And you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Say goodbye
Thank
now.
you, Andy. Thank you.
Can you believe that?
On behalf of Natasa, thank you very much. Yes, for your presentation. Really, yes.
Yes, it's always a
Oh,
pleasure, right? Andy, it's
oh,
always a pleasure to have you here
yes.
with us.
Oh, we
Okay,
saw your
thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Oh,
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
nice. Hello, nice. Thank you so much. A wonderful session with you, as always.
Thank you,
Right?
everybody. Thank you, Patty.
As always. No,
Thanks to you.
Thank you, right? You are really a passionate teacher, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you so
Patty.
much.
Andy.
Thank you, everybody.
Hoping to
Have a-
see you soon.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
For you
Blessings.
too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Blessings.
Goodbye.